Back for another episode of SCW Rewind here on YouTube. It is the show you voted for, WrestleMania 21. A very appropriate title, by the way, as we are entering WrestleMania weekend. And of course, as always, I can't review these shows on my own. I've got a very special guest joining me today from the Discus Lariat Collective. It is the one, the only, Warren in-house. Warren, how are you doing?
I'm good, Steve. Yeah, thanks very much for having me on.
It's great to have you on board, as always, for these shows. And yeah, to say, WrestleMania 21 is a show that was selected. What were your thoughts when you first got given this one?
I was delighted. I love WrestleMania 21. I was only thinking about it there as well. Like, it feels like it's overlooked in many ways. Like, I feel like with 17 being the best, and then say like 25 being the next biggest one, it feels like between 2020 and 24 kind of gets overlooked quite a bit. So when I got 21, I was delighted.
Yeah, it's for me. I feel exactly the same with it. It's like it's very nice the fact that that this is what everyone voted for, and this is what we've got today. Like you said, there's some big matches, some big moments on this show. Particularly, I remember we were just talking off air. Actually, you said there's probably 4 really big matches on this show.
Yeah, like the likes of Eddie and Rey Mysterio. We had Taker and Randy Orton as well. What else? The first ever Money in the Bank ladder match at this pay-per-view as well, which was iconic for the time. And then obviously Shawn Michaels against Kurt Angle. It's another really big one.
Absolutely. And not to forget as well, big change of the guard. So many young superstars getting their breakout moments. Big opportunities as well. We've seen the likes of Batista, John Cena. We mentioned Randy Orton there getting a big breakout moment, and Edge as well winning the first ever Money in the Bank ladder match. So lots that really done for this show. And also some of the other superstars like Carlito, of course, the controversial Muhammad Hassan as well getting a breakout moment also there.
Yeah, exactly. It felt like the era of like Rock and Austin and all them guys were kind of, it felt like it was so far behind now. Do you know what I mean? Even though it was only maybe a year or two that they were completely gone. But it felt like this was a whole new batch of talent now they were going to run with. And it felt fresh, to be honest.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I feel exactly the same. It felt like a real change of the guard, as you're saying. Just really, it pushes things going forward into the future, which is really good. It's important things for WrestleMania. It's a time to not just, make your established stars. It's time to make new stars as well. So that's always a good part of WrestleMania. And I think that's very important when you look into actually WrestleMania 38, the WrestleMania we're about to come into. It's really important that they can take this opportunity with the big stars they've got, but try and create some new ones as well.
Yeah, hopefully so, because like after a while, like we've seen it throughout the years, you have like say roughly a 5-year period every now and then where you're building stars quietly in the background, and then you have that year or so for a breakout. If you keep running the same stars into the ground, it gets stale quick, as we've seen with like when Roman Reigns was facing, he was kind of pushed down everyone's throat and stuff like that. While he completely changed it around now, being heel. Now is the time now to right, who's the next opponent in line from what's next for Reigns. You need to start building other guys now and just pushing them like front and center.
Absolutely, indeed. No, I completely agree, and that's the ingredients that is needed for a WrestleMania. This is the perfect platform of a WrestleMania if you were going to go and see that as an example. But as I say, WrestleMania 21, it was on April 3rd in the Staples Center in LA in 2005. For the Raw commentary duo, we had, of course, JR Jim Ross with Jerry the King Lawler. We had for SmackDown, Michael Cole and Taz. The commentary was just very much on point throughout the entire evening with these guys.
Yeah, they were just two of the best teams going at the time. Even looking back at it now, like it feels, I don't know, like when you look at nowadays, like you have like say Corey Graves, Michael Cole, Byron Saxon, stuff like that, and they are great. Jimmy Smith as well. I actually really like him. They're good in a different way, but back then it just felt more off the cuff. And even just for example, with the likes of the Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle match, like Jim Ross just calls every single move. Do you know what I mean? And he makes the match feel so much more important. Whether it's like even just a headlock or like Shawn Michaels staying in a headlock for so long or keeping Kurt Angle in the headlock for so long, it felt important the way they commentate. Whereas nowadays it kind of feels like it doesn't have that level of importance or something. It feels like, right, let's hit the next advert, let's hit the next promo. Oh, what's coming up later on the show? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. Like you say, sometimes like with these matches, you're living in the moment. Like you say with Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle, particularly with some special moments with that, and even just little ingredients that are thrown in just into commentary. Like even with Batista and Triple H, they really throw in the idea of like Ric Flair's at ringside, the experience of those two, almost the fact that they've been the mentor for Batista for so long. So they have these little ingredients in commentary where they just evening, which just makes a big difference. Just adds to the value watching from home.
It really does, yeah, because it feels like you didn't even need to say watch the build. Do you know what I mean? You get everything given to you in like kind of like this bite-sized package while you're watching it. So you just have it.
Yeah.
It feels like they're just reeling it off, and it works. It works perfectly. And again, that's a testament to the lads that they were doing it years, obviously, and they were well drilled at that point. But yeah, it just made everything feel so much more grand and stuff, especially at WrestleMania.
Absolutely, indeed. I couldn't agree more there with you. And obviously, we get into the American the Beautiful, a tradition we always get at the start of WrestleMania. Lillian Garcia, obviously doing the honors as she did so often around that time period.
Yeah, yeah. That's even though, like, I suppose a lot of people would say, it's kind of taxing or it's kind of dated with they make it trying to they always try to make it feel like a Super Bowl. Do you know what I mean? And that's gonna happen every year. That's gonna happen. I like it. I like the fact that it's kind of steeped in the tradition now. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
The America the Beautiful stuff. I love it. And Lily Garcia absolutely, she blew the roof off the place. Everyone loved it, and she has a great voice as well. So why not? No better woman.
Absolutely, yeah, and she always did a cracking job at it. And like you say, I'm a big fan of it as well. And like you say, it's that Super Bowl-esque. It's the biggest show of the year. They make a fuss, and that's what WrestleMania is all about. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing indeed. Then obviously we go into the opening intro video package as well. We see obviously with the Titantron, the red sort of curtain as well opening up, which I thought was a nice little touch also. And of course we got many Hollywood blockbusters, the vignettes that we got all on the road to WrestleMania, the Pulp Fictions of this world, the Bravehearts. What were your thoughts were looking back at some of those? I thought some of them were so entertaining.
Oh, they were. It's brilliant. It was just, as you said, entertainment. It's just top notch. The fact that they went and they just picked out so many like classic films as well, as you said, like Eddie and Booker T and Pulp Fiction. That's just so funny to me. Even watching them
Yeah.
back now, and what you call them, Triple H doing William Wallace and Braveheart, Taker doing Dirty Harry, and then the starting of it, I think they do what's it, Stone Cold as Gladiator, I think as well they do, and
Yeah, it was Stone Cold. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
that,
absolutely
that one was
brilliant. Yeah.
brilliant because that was kind of
Absolutely
kept
phenomenal.
quiet, I think.
If I'm not mistaken, I feel that was actually given for the first time then, because that was the one that was played in its entirety, wasn't it, from start to
It
finish?
was. Yeah, yeah, dead on. Yeah.
Absolutely. I've got to give a quick shout out as well to when Harry met Sally for Kurt Angle and Christy Hemme. I thought that was quite hilarious as well. So yeah, Kurt in that role just was absolutely superb. But yeah, I mean, obviously, as you go into the show, then to kick things off, what better match to kick off? If you want two solid performers that you know are going to give you a great job to kick off any show, especially your biggest one of the year, you throw in Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio. You can't go wrong with these two. Of course, they're both SmackDown Tag Team Champions at the time. Eddie Guerrero wants to prove that he still can win big singles matches. Of course, obviously, he was world champion this time last year at WrestleMania at this point. So he wants to show that he can do that. And he lost a few matches to Rey Mysterio on the build here. So he wanted to show he could still do it. But what were your thoughts with these two in the opening match?
I thought it was brilliant. I did think, like looking back on it now, it worked perfect. But I,
Mm,
I suppose at the time I remember thinking to myself like, these boys are tag team partners. Why are they fighting each other? Do you know what I mean? And obviously when you're younger, you don't really think of, oh, he's trying to prove he still has it as a single star, Eddie. Like, so
mm,
I was a bit like watching it. Obviously nowadays it's completely fine. I was like, oh, this is amazing. And I think as well, what's cool about this, it teased almost like Eddie was kind of dipping into heel territory a lot of the time as well.
yeah.
After a while, he feels like he couldn't get the best of Rey Mysterio. So he dips into heel territory, and you're kind of like, oh, this could be the end of these boys here. But hell of an opener. My God.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, breakneck pace from the start. As I was saying before we came on, even the likes of like Ray, his mask, I don't know if it wasn't properly adjusted or if it was something came loose in the mask. Every time he gets like a move, he's adjusting it on the fly, and you see him. And even that didn't take away from the match. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that could be a big factor. Do you know what I mean? Like, for all we know, he could have got just even a random hip toss, and the mask could have flew off. But thankfully, it didn't. But yeah, no, the lads just have such a natural chemistry as well. And I was only saying it to one of the boys, like around here, and we were actually chatting about this match, and we were chatting about Brett and Owen for WrestleMania 10.
Mm.
It feels like if you have such good friends or family or tag team partners, it feels like these kind of matches just work. You don't even need any story behind it. It'll just be entertaining, start to finish.
Absolutely, yeah, and I totally agree with that. And obviously, these two, they've had such a great chemistry over the years as well. Who can forget Halloween Havoc 1997 in WCW? They've gone through all the different territories growing up together. So, like you say, they they pretty much are like family, aren't they? These two.
They really are. Yeah, it's like it feels almost like you can't have one without the other. If you look at their like the trajectory of their careers and stuff, it feels like they were always intertwined somewhere along the lines. And what better place than to have that kind of blow off match than WrestleMania?
Absolutely, indeed, and obviously, with the frustration kicking in, Eddie Guerrero can't pick up the victory. There was a couple of real near falls after a certain type of backbreaker that got to a very close near fall. There was a roll up that was countered as well by Eddie at one point. It was very close. That felt very tight, very close to near fall. It was like a 2 3/4 where you just felt the crowd gasp from, and it was like it's going to end. Eddie's going to get it. But in the end, of course, you just see that frustration kick in. Eddie Guerrero takes his eye off the ball for just a second. Then a Hurricanrana is hit on Eddie Guerrero. And of course, Ray holds onto the leg, managed to get the pinfall victory. Ray picks up the victory there at the end of the match there. And Eddie, you can see the frustration kick in, but you see the handshake at the end of there. There is still that respect. They're still tag team partners. But of course, like you said, it's the road to beginning of where we get with Eddie Guerrero turning heel later down the line. We get the match at SummerSlam for the custody of Dominic Mysterio. How time flies now into the future. But yeah, I mean, this to me did everything it needed to do. It was a great solid opener.
It really was. Yeah, I completely agree. I think it got the crowd going as well. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, WrestleMania, if you're not last, you want to be first. And I think them boys went out, killed it. And the crowd were just buzzing then from the start of that show all the way to the end. It felt like there was no real lull then after that.
No, absolutely. Yeah, completely agree with that. And like you say, a solid 12-minute, 39-second opener. And just to give our star rating for Mr. Dave Meltzer, I'd like to give him a shout on these retro reviews. 3.5 star was the star rating for this opener. Do you think that's a fair rating?
I'd say it's fair. I probably would have pushed it maybe to a 4 or something like that, just because I think if you look at it, like if you come away from the match as well and just look at how well it's set up the rest of the card, I think you can kind of bump it up a bit more. But I'd probably go 4.
I think you're right, to be fair. I think 4. Definitely on second watch for me. This one, I think it's definitely it's gone over better than the first time I watched it. So for me, I'd have to agree with you. I think 4 star is a fair rating for this one.
Yeah. Happy out with that.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what then. Yeah, I think 4 stars is a fair rating for this one. I realize it just cut out for a split second there. But so what we'll do is we will move on in the meantime, and hopefully you can all still hear me. We're going to go on to match number 2, the first ever Money in the Bank ladder match, with, of course, Edge winning that one, featuring Christian, Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, Shelton Benjamin, and Kane. This match was fire from the beginning, so much that I'm pretty sure the stage was on fire. What did you notice that in the background with the ladders? They looked to be a bit of fire, like a bit of something going wrong in the background. Was it just me?
It looks like something gets caught. I'm not sure if it was some sort of pyro issue or what's the crack. You can kind of catch it in the background. Yeah, dead right.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it just was a sign. I mean, the temperature just didn't go down at all throughout the entire of this match, because these guys fighting in the aisles, and it was just a human highlight reel all the way through. What were some of your favorite spots?
It's actually funny when I rewatched this. I completely forgot about the spot where Kane tries to choke slam Benoit off the ladder and he catches him in the crippler crossface. I love that. I'm a sucker for like a big move getting turned into submission. I just love it. Just that kind of they caught you. I love that. Also, Shelton Benjamin going out and stealing the show. That man just. I mean, when you look back on it and you think to yourself, like, Jesus, like he really did go all out in these kind of matches. He really did, and it's the definition of, like, when people say about Jeff Hardy putting his body on the line in ladder matches, Shelton Benjamin's up there, probably a close second, because that's crazy some of the moves he did in this match.
Absolutely. In particular, I thought myself, the moment when he ran up the ladder for the clothesline, that spot was just incredible from the beginning. And obviously, you had those dives at the start of the match also, where I think it was Chris Jericho doing the drop kick, Christian doing his usual, diving over the rope, and then, of course, Shelton Benjamin just jumping over and just landing on everybody, even to the point Kane had to go as well. It was just, it was great fun all the way around. And, I mean, wasn't the T-bone suplex, I think, was Shelton's finishing move. I think he did that off to Edge off the top of the ladder as well. Absolutely breathtaking spot.
Oh yeah, and it was so clean as well. It wasn't like sometimes, obviously, in a match like this when it's a bit chaotic, like if someone's in the wrong place at the wrong time, it could completely wreck a spot. Do you know what I mean? Let alone injure somebody. But that was just clean. Like, Shelton's just such a smooth worker, I think. And again, like these boys, like the likes of Edge and I say Chris Jericho and Christian, they had a bit more experience in ladder matches. But like Shelton Benjamin didn't really, and same with Kane. Like Kane's a standout in these kind of matches as well. Like he's always in them every year. It felt like, and he was actually pretty good because you do need that big man kind of dynamic as well. I think
He offers something different, doesn't he?
yeah, he really does. And the fact that it's like you're thinking, it's just going to be like the big man, slow, looking around. He might put someone through a table or a ladder or something. But he actually, like as you said, like when he's diving out to the outside or he's up on top of a ladder, and you kind of think to yourself, oh, gee, you don't know what's going on next.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned about Chris Benoit and Kane earlier on in this match. Then obviously they playing towards the finish, and one of the spots that I feel a bit uncomfortable looking at nowadays. Probably would have thought was incredible back in the day, but obviously the headbutt from the top of the ladder from Chris Benoit to Kane, and obviously you see Benoit sort of busted open hard at that point.
Yeah, it is crazy. Like looking back at it, like and like them diving headbutts were so unprotected. Do you know what I mean? It felt like he just went whole hog into them. It's like I remember there's one from WCW as well where he hits a chair and he just does not put his hands up. He just dives and just splits himself off a chair. I can't remember what that event is, but same with this one though. As you said, he just throws caution to the wind quite literally.
Yeah.
Dives out, headbutt, unprotected, and you kind of think to yourself, wow. Like obviously, if you know, and then what happens, say 2 years later, do you know what I mean? You probably wouldn't be doing them kind of moves.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's where I think you get that uncomfortable factor looking back over it now. But of course, Benoit was selling his arm throughout this match as well. Like you said, he'd been taking quite a beating on it. I think his arm had been trapped in the ladder by Kane at one point, but he was the one that was climbing up the ladder. It looked like he was going to be the one to pick up the win in the first ever Money in the Bank. But Edge, of course, was there, was a steel chair. And, you know, he knocked Benoit off the ladder, climbed up, and he was the one to retrieve the briefcase. Of course, just one little mind note earlier in the match as well, Edge and Christian actually did sort of reunite and do a bit of tandem moves together at one point as well, which was a fun little spot. But of course, Edge just felt like the clear right choice there to be the first ever Money in the Bank holder. And of course, we get to see some great things further down the line, how this Money in the Bank would actually be used and treated in the future, because then it was.
So you cut out there.
Apologies. Yeah, we can take that again. It's probably a good time to take it again. But we're just saying that Edge was probably the right person to win this because it was an unknown entity, but we'd learn what Money in the Bank would represent further on in the future with future years, future winners, and obviously with the first ever cash-in. But Edge just was the perfect person to win the first ever one.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And it's crazy, as you said, yeah, like when you look back then, like what a career, like path that put him on. And then every person then, you're kind of thinking, can't wait for next year's Money in the Bank. Don't need to see who wins this and goes on and has that kind of main event career. So yeah, definitely the right choice. And I think as well, the whole Ultimate Opportunist then that came about, it felt like leading up to that, like around say late 2004, early 2005, Edge was kind of on the cusp of like, is he ever going to get that big break? And then this was the perfect opportunity for it.
It certainly was indeed there. And I mean, to just quickly ask the question, say someone else had won this match and it wasn't Edge, so it was one of the established stars, or perhaps it was Shelton. We don't know how that would have turned out. Do you think that it would have had the same impact, or was, you know, would Money in the Bank still be the same thing we look at today if it wasn't Edge who won this match?
That's a good question, actually. I think the Money in the Bank would still be the same level of like overall of what it could do to somebody. I do think though it might not have the same like the finish to the match and what it did for Edge. I don't think maybe like if the likes of Shelton or like I think like if you look at it, like I suppose Jericho was already a multi-time champ. Benoit was a champ, stuff like that. So it kind of maybe yeah, if it wasn't Edge, I don't think it'd probably have that oomph to it. You know what I mean? Going through 2005, I don't think it would have shot them up the ladder the way it did for Edge.
I don't think so either. I really don't think it would have done the same for Edge even. I do wonder if Money in the Bank, because where it established a new star, you've got that excitement saying, who's the next person to get the opportunity? Then you see next year it was Rob Van Dam, for example. You had that reason to believe that this was going to build the stars for the future. So for me, that was something that was really exciting me early days from the idea of Money in the Bank. So I don't know if it would have been the same, but like you said, the cash-ins and perhaps I suppose the buzz of the match concept itself still probably would have worked quite well.
Yeah, I think just overall, yeah, because like that kind of gimmick behind it, we are like, oh, it's a multi-man ladder match, so it's a bit chaotic, and then you have the fact that like, oh, they do win a title shot, so it's that added bonus. But oh, yeah, I think as well, like I still believe though that Money in the Bank should be reserved for WrestleMania. I don't really like the fact that it's a pay-per-view on its own. I do miss it on WrestleMania, to be honest.
It was going to be my next question for you, actually. So no, it's good, interesting that you've answered that. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was a special place at WrestleMania. I mean, is it a showing how good of a concept it is that it now has its own pay-per-view, or do you think that despite that, then, like you say, it's good enough for it, but it still should be WrestleMania, and that should just be end of discussion?
Yeah, I think like it does prove that it's such a big ordeal now. Do you know what I mean? The Money in the Bank to WWE and what it can do to stars. But I do think at WrestleMania it gives 6 to 8 people a WrestleMania moment, whether they win, lose, or draw. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's fine having it as a pay-per-view, but I think if you just kept it to WrestleMania, it would feel like it meant a bit more like, and especially have 2 nights of WrestleMania. You could do a women's one on one night and the fellas one on the other. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah.
I like that idea. I think that's a very clever idea that you put there, because I mean, especially for this year, the women are struggling to get on the WrestleMania card. They've had to throw together a women's tag team match with 4 teams just to get more people on the card. So yeah, I think that would be a good concept and a good idea.
Yeah, like realistically, if you take them, like them, say 8 women or whatever it is, throw
Mm.
them in that ladder match. There you go. You could have had like one of them is your next big star.
Yeah, absolutely. A great opportunity rather than necessarily a throwaway tag team match. I think they make a fantastic point there. Well, we'll move back onto the match then to sort of give its star ratings. Dave Meltzer gave it a 4.5 star. The match went 15 minutes and 17 seconds. Felt like a perfect length of time for a first ever Money in the Bank ladder match. There was never really time to breathe in it. It felt there was just so many big spot after big spot after big spot. Do you think Big Dave got it right with 4.5?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you could go 4.5, or you could go full 5. But yeah, I'm happy enough with with 4.5. I think as well. Like as you said, 15 minutes. It felt like it went on like way longer. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It really did. So I'd say 4.5 is fair enough for me personally, anyway.
I think so as well. I'm not usually one to agree with Big Dave on these things, but it seemed to be a bit more on his side so far today. But yeah, Big Dave, I think you got it right there for us. We're going to go with 4.5 star as well there for that Money in the Bank ladder match. There was some interaction backstage with Triple H and JBL, kind of a bit of mockery done on JBL and his cabinet of being the wrestling god from Ric Flair and Triple H. They kind of more or less teased the idea that they could go against each other in the future, but let's see who are going to be the world champions left at the end of the night. Did you find this interesting, or did you kind of find it as sort of a bit like a bit random? These two were thrown together backstage.
I like the interaction. The fact that it's WrestleMania, everybody from different rosters are there, so I like the little interaction. But when they were kind of teasing, fighting each other, I was like, "Oh, please God, no! It's not something I would have wanted to see, to be honest."
Definitely not in 2005 anyway. Definitely didn't feel like the right time for it. So, but yeah, like you say, it's the only time you can make those interactions. So yeah, why not? It seems to be okay to do. We did have Eugene come up next now. And of course, Eugene was definitely a fun character back in the day. What are your thoughts of Eugene?
Yeah, I liked it. I suppose like when you look back on it now, it's a bit mad that they got away with having a
Mm,
man pretend that he had a mental disability. But
yeah.
like at the time though, it was actually like I used to love the Eugene bits. Like whether it was, I remember, I think it was Triple H attacked William Regal before in like a hotel room, stuff like that.
Mm,
It felt like Jesus. This kid, he felt like a kid. He actually felt like
mm.
a child. So the way they built it and like the story behind him and the fact that like he was being taken advantage of with Triple H and stuff like that, and he had the kind of feel good moment where like The Rock stood up for him and stuff like that. I did actually like Eugene's bits and pieces.
Absolutely. I mean, if he played his character extremely well, there's no argument in that. I would say he always gave 110% into the role and always seemed to deliver. It felt more than not.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's literally just like at the end of the day, like anything in wrestling, you're playing a character, you're acting, and his acting chops were up to par. Anyway, it did feel like legitimately real. And as you said, he put his head down and he worked with everything he was given.
He really did. No, I have to say 100 million% on that one. And obviously, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit because, like we say, 2005 probably can't say things as perhaps they would have done back then. But of course, Eugene come out and said that this is his second favorite WrestleMania moment after King Kong Bundy with the little people back at
Yeah.
WrestleMania 3. You can see I've paraphrased that massively. But of course, we see Muhammad Hassan, of course, one of the most controversial characters in probably wrestling history. And of course, we'll probably discuss a bit about him in a second. But he came out, he felt like he'd been neglected, and and Davari end up taking out Eugene. Obviously, we see the camel clutch put on Eugene as well. And then this sees the save for Eugene. And obviously we see Hogan take out Muhammad Hassan. So what were your thoughts with this segment?
I thought it. I get what they were going with. Like obviously having Hogan then on the show and stuff like that, and it felt like a big deal. I felt like it could have just happened on an episode of Raw. To be honest, I didn't feel like it had like many. What would you say? It didn't have a WrestleMania implication. Bar getting Hogan on the card, he could have just came out and cut a promo himself. Do you know what I mean? Like the likes of Muhammad Hassan overall, though, I actually didn't mind the character. Yeah, it got a bit dark pretty quick, but I do think as well with like they do lean heavily on stuff like that. WWE do. They love the controversy of anything like that, whether it's a character or whether it's a storyline. And I think it actually isn't too bad of a character, Muhammad Hassan. And I think as well, people always make fun of like Americans where they can say whatever they want, but if you say anything against America, it's a big ordeal. I think I actually think Muhammad Hassan would have had a lot of like chat, like a lot of time to actually go forward with that character, to be honest.
I agree. I mean, is it one of the biggest missed opportunities for a character if they had not done the incident they did that eventually had to write that character off?
Yeah, I think so. If they just had kept him as like Muhammad Hassan, he's angry that he's disrespected. He feels like racially profiled and stuff like that. That's a great character to have because it's real. Like that happens every day to people. So I think that would have been a great character to go on. Like and like have a proper career. Like and eventually you could turn him you could turn him face, and maybe after a while where he feels vindicated, he's maybe won a championship or he's got some moments under his belt. But I do think when they definitely shot themselves in the foot with that crazy angle they did, the kidnapping kind of angle. It was just you've racially profiled him now. Do you know what I mean? To the point where you can't do anything about it. So
yeah, absolutely. It's one of the biggest what ifs, isn't it? Unfortunately, in wrestling history. But obviously, for a spot here, like you said, you got Hulk Hogan on the card. Kind of felt kind of WrestleMania 7-esque, if you want, like with the head with Hogan and Slaughter. I would make that comparison. But obviously, it was I suppose a way to get your big Hall of Famer on the show in some fashion and format. But all in all, it was a segment, and it was a segment that led us then to what would be our next big match on the card. And of course, we've got a video package with this as well, with Randy Orton versus The Undertaker. Was Randy Orton the legend killer? The Undertaker, of course, the streak is being heavily made a deal of at this point as well. Obviously, we saw the video package here that Undertaker, all his previous opponents, and that we're seeing the sort of like, I think it was 12-0 at this point going into the show. So, I mean, what were your thoughts with the build-up of Undertaker and Randy Orton?
I love the whole build, to be honest. Randy Orton, the whole legend killer thing, it made you want to hate him. Do you know what I mean? Like when he was like even the year before it, when he was like attacking Mick Foley and stuff like that, and then leading up, going like taking through the legends and stuff, and you were like, this little brash, arrogant young fella, he's doing me head in. He was wrecking me head, and he was under the skin, and that's what you want from a heel. Do you know what I mean? And then when he came up against Taker, though, it was one of them things. It's like it's a make or break moment. There's no bigger legend to kill. Do you know what I mean? And I loved the video package as well. Like we were already chatting about beforehand. It felt like one of the first times that the streak was properly mentioned, and it just added a bit more weight to the match then as well.
It really, really did indeed. There, obviously, we go through that video package and you see, like, Randy Orton showing he's the legend killer, like, spitting in the face of likes of the Harley race, and obviously the feud against Mick Foley, and just seeing all those moments. I think even not on the legend circumstance, but he was willing to take anyone out. We were starting to see this sort of like Viper-esque character where he even RKO'd Stacy Keibler.
Yeah, true. It felt like he was unhinged, and you were like, oh, he could snap. You don't know what he's going to do next. And as well, when you actually look back on it, like from that perspective, if he had a beaten Taker, it probably like don't get me wrong, I'm a firm believer that the streak probably shouldn't have ended in general. I think it would have been cool to just retire with the 0 on the end of that. But if he had a bet him, I don't think it would have been that big of a deal, because it's like he's after taking off all these legends. It kind of made sense then almost to be Taker. Do you know what I mean? But or maybe even like if it didn't happen at WrestleMania and they did it after or something like that. But yeah, no, I feel like Randy Orton was probably. I think actually Taker said it in an interview as well. If it wasn't Orton to beat him, he actually wanted to lose it to Edge at WrestleMania 24.
Yeah, I remember that actually, and I think Edge refused actually when him offered the opportunity, which is crazy when you think back at it. You've got a chance to beat the Undertaker at WrestleMania, you take it, wouldn't you? But yeah, you know that's on your career forever at that point. But obviously as well, just one other little note as well from the video package. Also, Cowboy Bob Orton, another Hall of Famer that year. Also, Randy's father, obviously begging to not have the Undertaker face at WrestleMania, but of course that was a ploy to get an RKO as well there. Do you think that it was a very clever use as well? Because obviously Cowboy Bob Orton, a WWE legend, Hall of Famer at that point, it just helps endorse Randy Orton even further.
Oh, it does, yeah, big time. And the fact that like Cowboy Bob, just a natural heel as well, like exactly like Randy when you look at it in a way. It's I suppose it's literally like looking in a mirror, really. Like Cowboy Bob, as you said, like, oh please don't fight my son, this, that, and the other. And you're like, oh, maybe this is serious. He obviously doesn't want his kid in peril here against Undertaker, like the biggest legend of all. And then there you go, both of them working in tandem to kind of get
Yeah,
one over on Taker.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, you're totally right indeed there. And I mean, obviously, as you go into the match itself, then to discuss it, I mean, obviously, Randy Orton got quite a lot of offense in on this match. We were discussing that off camera as well. But obviously, very early went for an RKO, was flung over the top rope as well. We see a bit of old school. But you said Randy got a lot of offense in this match. He seemed to have quite a bit of time where he was actually digging into the Taker, which is a huge endorsement for such a young athlete at the time.
100%. Yeah, I think Taker really did see like a big future for Randy Orton, and like at how naturally gifted Orton is. Like as much as people say he's a born wrestler, he's fairly safe. Do you know what I mean? And he does actually have a pretty decent moveset, I think, and it works well for a heel. And I think with Taker taking so much offense, selling well as well, it wasn't like, oh, it'll sell for a second and then it's gone. He was literally selling consistently throughout the whole match, and it really did made Randy Orton in a way.
It really did. This was definitely one of those showcase moments. And obviously, as we got towards the close of the finish of this match, where obviously the referee had taken a bump, Cowboy Bob Orton comes and hits Taker with the cast. Referee still down, but sort of manages to get himself to make a 2 count. Undertaker manages to get out of it. We see then the Cowboy back on the ring apron. Undertaker managed to hit a big boot, so he was knocked off. Taker then, if I'm not mistaken, is going for a choke slam, and that's when it's counted into the RKO, one of the most beautiful spots of the entire match. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, 1,000%. I love that reversal from the choke slam into an RKO, because realistically, like, when you think about it, it's one of the first kind of like, oh, that's the out of nowhere aspect of the RKO, because like when you're in a choke slam and your arm is over the other person's shoulder, you're going up, you're going down. There's a small window to even move, let alone turn your entire body into an RKO, and it just looked so smooth.
Yeah, it really, really did. And of course, I think the fans thought that that could have been the finish at that point because the Taker just
Yeah,
got his shoulder up, and it was a real selling point.
it really was. Yeah, the crowd popped big time. Like when they seen Taker fall, the second Taker hits the deck, the crowd are on their feet and they're like, "Oh my god, he's gone, he's done," and it
Yeah.
just it was amazing. Like even just thinking about it now, I'm getting that kind of feeling where it's like, Jesus, if that could have been a finish, 100% could have been a finish.
Absolutely could have been. And of course, then Randy Orton really sort of gets into that character even more and shows, perhaps taking it one step too far, though, showing that he wants to beat The Undertaker with his own move, of course, attempting the Tombstone Pile Driver. And of course, that is reversed then. And of course, Taker hits his Tombstone Pile Driver and picks up the 1, 2, 3. But for me, this was a fantastic match, watching it back over, much better than what I remember it.
Yeah, it really was. And Taker was in he was in some shape around this time, but he came back in '04 all the way through to like
Mm.
'09. He had some great, even 2010 as well. Yeah, that kind of period. Yeah, from like '05 to 2010, I think he was in peak physical condition, and he went hard every time he was in that ring, and he didn't slow down. Like not a step was missed. So I think this match, it actually stands out as one of the highlights of this pay-per-view, I think.
I have to agree with you. I think that it's certainly one that I think if you haven't, or if you don't remember it, I recommend people to go back and watch this match in particular. It really is a standout.
Yeah, it is. It's brilliant, and it's one of Taker's best WrestleMania as well, I think, because he did have a few stinkers throughout the career, but I think this is
Yeah.
one of the better ones.
Absolutely. If you think of the Giant Gonzalez, for example, the one I had luxury of probably recovering over last year, this is certainly a lot better in the Taker repertoire. But to go back through then, this is a 14-minute, 14-second match and is given a 3.5-star rating by Dave Meltzer. So I'm agreeing a lot with Big Dave today. I think that that's a very fair rating, perhaps even 3.75.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Yeah, 3.5, 3.7.5. Yeah, I think Yeah, he's actually getting this. This was before he had the rose tinted glasses on, and I think, do you know what I mean? When AEW rocked around and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, he was fine back then, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely. Dave, you're getting some compliments today. I think that's something that's definitely coming through on this show. But one match that I'm not sure if we're going to get much compliment to about or not, and I always hate to say that, but it's just Stratus versus Christy Hemme for the Women's Championship. Now, this did come with a video package as well. Seemed that Trish was jealous of Christy Hemme for being able to pose in Playboy at the time. We see then a challenge was put out for WrestleMania, but Trish was like, well, I've got no problem with this, lays out Christy with a chick kick. What do you think you can do that can, best me? It's almost like that legend versus novice, if you want, again, someone that's established against the rookie. And of course, Christy's getting training. She's getting help from Lita, where we see a sort of own variation then of a twist of fate as well. So that's sort of the build for this match here between these two. But Christy Hemme clearly is on WrestleMania because of the Playboy magazine. But it kind of felt for me in this match, and that's not to be mean to her when I say this, but it felt like it was definitely a bit too soon for her. I felt that this match was a bit messy in places.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Yeah, she is fairly green, and I know people say that about WrestleMania. If you're never ready until you're ready, until you're there, like. So I totally get that. But she was super green. You could see she was waiting on every spot to be called, and it just looked awkward. And I actually remember seeing Samoa Joe talk about it at a seminar. If you get, say, a punch or a kick, or you're selling some sort of offense, and your spot is then on the opposite side of the ring, sell and go over as you're selling, that kind of thing. Where it was like she'd get a move, sell, get back up, and then it was like almost like robot walking over to the next point. It felt like, do you know what I mean? It felt very right, A, B, C, D, kind of going like through the motions. And like, fair play to Trish. Obviously, she carried her. She's established now at this stage, and like, it wasn't like, at least there was no real standout botch. At least, do you know what I mean? Or there was nobody got hurt or nothing like that. So I suppose it did what it had to. But as you said, she was only really on the show because of the Playboy cover.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, it's going towards a casual market in a certain way, and obviously, it's a certain casual market. Perhaps not what we sort of see on all different sort of celebrities that may come into a WrestleMania at some point. But as for the match for its close, I think this is one of the bits where I've kind of felt was a bit off as well. There was sort of a comeback from Christy Hemme. She sort of managed to land a few shots and hit a twist of fate, but then there was like a reverse roll up. And for me, on that reverse roll up, it felt like the shoulder didn't get up, and it felt like commentary had to cover for that. And then, literally, as soon as both of them were back on their feet, Trish just kind of put everything and everyone out of the misery, hit the chick kick, and got the 1-2-3.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it did feel like it was almost called on the fly there when that mix up happened, and as you said, the commentary had to cover for it. And you can feel that when it happens, especially like if it happens to two more, like, I suppose, veteran performers. Like if it happens in, say, a Kurt Angle against Shawn Michaels, it's like water off a duck's back, if you will. But when it happens in a match where someone is so inexperienced, it does stand out. And I think Trish did the right thing, and just, right, now's the time, call it, pull the plug.
Absolutely, indeed. There, and I'm going to say this match is not a long match. One of the shorter matches on the show. This one is 4 minutes and 11 seconds. Big Dave gives this one a dud. He doesn't give this any rating at all. Now, I'm going to disagree. I think it's a bit harsh. I don't think it's a great match. Unfortunately for the ladies, they didn't get the opportunity to showcase and perhaps what some of the standards we're used to seeing today. But I'm going to give it half a star, or 3/4 star. I mean, they've showed up, they've come to work, and I think Christy, it has to be taken into account of how green she was. She was a Raw Diva search winner. She's not been training and doing this for years at this point.
Exactly. Yeah, I think you're dead right. It is harsh given the dud ranking, because, like, realistically, it takes a lot to get in the ring. Do you know what I mean? Let alone at WrestleMania. Do you know what I mean? The biggest stage in them all. It's showcasing, I think it's 80 odd countries, probably more nowadays. And it's I'd say it's a scary moment to be in there as well. And if you're trying to remember what you've gone through, say, beforehand, and you've talked over the match, or you're in there and you make a mistake. So I think, they did all right for what it was. Do you know what I mean? It was nothing in particular special like about it, but they did what they had to do.
Absolutely, indeed. Let's give you a star rating then before we move on to our next match.
I'd say half a star is fair, to be honest.
Half? I think that's fair. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to move on to then is match 5, which is Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle. Now, of course, a lot of the build for this, people may remember, started at the Royal Rumble. Of course, Kurt Angle was eliminated very quickly from that match, and Kurt Angle getting his revenge on HBK, of course, throwing HBK out of the match and then attacking him on the outside, ankle lock in toe. Remember all the sexy boy stuff from Kurt Angle as well with Sherry, and of course actually attacking Sherry and putting an ankle lock on her and as well on Marty Jannetty. There was some classic comical Kurt moments on the road to this.
There really was, yeah. And as you said, like that, it was actually a pretty cool build because like stuff like that is it's very rare that it feels so natural. Like the fact that he was kicked out of Royal Rumble so quick, and then he's like, you know what, now I'm not having that, and he just snapped. And it was almost like the beginning of the wrestling machine core angle. It feels like the fact that he
Yeah.
was like unhinged a bit, and he's like, no, I know I'm better than this, and he just went off on Shawn Michaels. And then, as you said, the comedy though, like Kurt is a fairly funny fella, and
Yeah.
like in hindsight, he actually like people do understand it now in hindsight. But like if you look back the Steve Austin bits and pieces he did years ago, and then the sexy Kurt bits and pieces, it's just hilarious. Like the man is just so naturally funny. Like
He really is. He knows how to sell and make a comedy moment when he wants to. But like you said, that unhinged machine comes out as well. What I really liked about it is a twist about this in the video package as well. He said this issue actually goes all the way back to 1996. I love the fact that when Kurt wins the gold medal, he says everyone's talking about the boyhood dream that comes true from WrestleMania 12 of HBK and Bret Hart. I love that that was brought in as a little token, if you want, to this feud. Do you think that was a nice touch?
oh, 100%. Yeah, it's a great touch. And it was the fact he talks about that and he says, what was it? He says everyone's saying that Shawn Michaels is the greatest wrestler of all time. Whereas he's a
Mm,
legit wrestler, this man. He's won a gold medal in the Olympics, and this fella's still getting talked about more. That if anything, that would actually rile you up a bit. It's like if you are playing football and you are playing in the Premier League or something, and somebody was like, oh,
mm.
this non-league fella, he's way better than you. You would be getting
Yeah.
a bit roiled up. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, indeed. There, although Jamie Vardy won the Premier League at one point, but I know what you're saying completely there with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one for the UK fans that are watching right now. But yeah, anyway, as we go into the match itself, then I mean to break this down a little bit, I mean both superstars feeling each other out from the early doors. That one-upsmanship as you'd expect in a big encounter like this. But I mean, this went to the floor quite quickly, and it was a very brutal spot there where the angle slam was done on the outside, and Shawn Michaels' right leg seemed to go into the ring post. Looked quite brutal from early doors.
It did, yeah, and I think as well it was one of them moments where it's like Court has snapped because he was getting embarrassed almost by how much kind of control Shawn Michaels had over him. Like I remember
Mm,
the headlock spot that goes on for like it felt like the entire first 5 minutes of the match. He just doesn't let Angle out of a headlock, and he's trying to push him off, and he brings him to the ground. And you're thinking to yourself, Jesus, Kurt Angle's supposed to be this Olympic level wrestler, and he
mm,
can't even get out of a headlock. Do you know what I mean? So it was like he was embarrassed. He needed to do something, so he goes straight for like Shawn Michaels. Like he has that history with the bad back, so
mm,
he just takes it to him. And his leg though did look like it kind of hit awkwardly as well. Do you know what I mean? And even a
mm.
few minutes later, I remember there's a dive that Shawn Michaels does where he kind of slips as he goes to jump off the top rope. And
Yeah,
when he hits that dive, his knee hits Kurt across the cheek, I think it is. And
yeah.
that looked really brutal as well. It looked like he kind of knocked him for six as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that was probably one of the next big spots in the match, therefore, and of course, it does continue on where these guys are just going for it. Really, I mean, cutting or going for a German suplex as well from the outside on the ring apron. That I mean, if that had landed, that would have been really brutal. But I mean, Kurt then was around the table spot as well, where we see the high cross body as well onto Kurt onto the table. I thought that was pretty cool as well.
Yeah, it was, and it like it's another way. Like sometimes it kind of takes it away when the table doesn't break. This felt
Mm,
like it. Sometimes it looks worse when the table doesn't break. It looks more painful, I think, as well. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I love that spot, and I love the way Shawn Michaels like at WrestleMania he does go all out, and Kurt was the perfect foil for him. I think of that because Kurt himself goes all out in every match. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
He doesn't have a fourth, second, or third gear. It feels like Kurt's a
No,
fourth, fifth gear man. You know what I mean?
yeah.
All the time. So I think him and Shawn Michaels there, like they just went like hellfire leather with stuff like that, like the dives, the as we were saying there, the angle slam into the ring post. It was just like let's step it up. This isn't Raw. This isn't SmackDown. It's WrestleMania. Let's go for it, boys. That's what it felt like.
Absolutely, indeed. There, and if my memory serves me correctly, as well, there was an angle stand from the top rope as well during this match.
There was, and yeah, the avalanche angle slam. I thought that could have been a finish actually as well. When like watching
Mm,
the back, I was like, wow, I couldn't even remember that spot when I watched the
yeah,
back. I was like, Jesus, yeah. So Court with the offense, Shawn Michaels, obviously the man can just he can't really have a bad match with someone. Do you know what I mean? He just we won't talk about the Saudi match anyway, but he just sells so well. Like, do you know what I mean? It feels like, I love the desperation in Shawn Michaels. You always see it etched on his face, where he's like, you can see he's in pain, and he could just be like, you could see Shawn Michaels just take it like a punch, and he'd be like, oh, gee, and you're like, wow, is he all right? And you're kind of trying to look around his hand. He just the selling is on point, like, and then Angle as well, the frustration that comes out of Angle, and like, I love that ankle lock spot when he has him in the ankle lock and Michaels cannot kick him off. That's amazing to me. That is amazing.
It's beautiful. Beautiful spot. It really, really is, particularly as you get towards the finish. I mean, obviously, there's moments before that where you said the frustration of Kurt really kicks in, and Kurt says, like, you know, just tap out to this. And of course, he gets the switch in music for his trouble, which you thought yourself that could have been the finish of the match as well, because that's just perfect. Shawn Michaels can just hit that stuff out of nowhere. But like you said, you go back into the ankle lock again, and Shawn, like you said there, just the moments of how to just finish a matchup where you just sell that move so much, because he can't get to the ropes. He can't get to the ropes. He knows he doesn't want to give up, but he knows he's just going to take this pain for as long as he can. And the suffering that Shawn goes to before he eventually taps out for Kurt Angle to pick up the victory is just something that's sublime. It's just a thing of beauty.
It really is. Yeah, it's the definition of, like, what would you say, like, storytelling, and like it makes you believe that he's in that kind of pain, and that, like, oh my God, like, what he doesn't want to let anybody down, let alone himself. Do you know what I mean? So he doesn't want to tap. So and you think to yourself, and the commentary as well, like, do you know what I mean? They always go on about, like, the ankle lock. They sell the ankle lock better than the ankle lock, I think, commentary. Because they do be saying, like, obviously, it's on your ankle, but it can tear your knee to shreds, the way they build it up, and it just sounds such like a violent move, which it is, obviously, don't get me wrong, but it's just the way the commentary builds to it, and they sell that, and then Michael selling it, and Angle's face, like, when he gets an ankle lock in, it's almost scary to watch. Do you know what I mean? Because it looks like he is reefing that thing, like, so. Oh, brilliant finish to a match.
Absolutely. Like you say, Kurt Angle was good at the facials for it as well, just to really show that he's really applying that hold with some pressure. And obviously, where as soon as Shawn has tapped out as well, like the commentary straight on point, going, his ankle may be broken after that. Like there's no way he would just tap out. His ankle must be broken. So they really did such a terrific job of selling it. And to go through then and just give our little bit of detail from the match of the length of time, it was a long match. This one, 27 minutes and 25 seconds, the longest on the show, but 4 3/4 star rating from Dave Meltzer. I think this one deserves the full 5. I'm going to be brutally honest.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you there. Like, I'm a bit of a Shawn Michaels shill, but this match is literally top 3 Shawn Michaels matches, I probably think. And it's probably even top 3 of his WrestleMania matches. Do you know what I mean? It's up there.
Yeah,
it was so good, start to finish, and it's the perfect build. It's like a song building to, like, a crescendo. That's how it felt.
Yeah,
because it's a slow start and then bang, that finish. I don't think I'll ever get over that.
No, it's absolutely incredible. It's a must see, and probably going to be. I would say it's my favorite match of the night by far.
Yeah, 100% with you there. Match of the night.
Absolutely. One match that's not my favorite match of the night, it's going to be match 6 we're going to talk about, is the sumo match between Big Show and Akebono. This is 60 seconds, although it felt like a lifetime to get to those 60 seconds watching these two in sumo gear throwing the sword. And I understand they have the traditions of a sumo match, the respect element, but I've seen too much of Big Show's butt during this segment, to be brutally honest. But what were your thoughts of the sumo match? Obviously, it doesn't last very long. Akebono gets picked up. But then as soon as he gets picked up, it leaves Big Show invulnerable, and he's thrown out of the circle and out of the ring. It looked kind of a painful finish.
Yeah, it did actually. It looked like he hurt himself, to be honest. But I just don't know why this match was happening. Like, to this day, I still don't understand what went through their head. Where they were like, "Let's put this at WrestleMania."
Yeah,
It's honestly the weirdest thing. I don't even know. I don't really have any thoughts on it at all. It's just so strange to me. It literally is.
For me, I was like, as soon as this show came up, I was like, I feel sorry for Warren's got to watch this. It's not very long, but it's painful enough. Do you know what I mean? This match, it's definitely, we've gotten from one of the best matches of WrestleMania history to one of the worst. And like you say, it's just a bizarre decisional round. And obviously, the only thing that comes of any good note from this of why this match happened is a few years later, Big Show had not won a singles match at WrestleMania, and it was used as one of Big Show's embarrassing moments on the bill for the Cody Rhodes match. For WrestleMania 28, if I'm not mistaken. That's the only benefit I've seen of this match in history.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, if even if this match didn't happen, I'm sure he would have a few embarrassing moments leading up to the Cody Rhodes thing anyway. But this is it's just so strange. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, obviously they didn't know what was going to happen, say 4 or 5 years down the line with Cody Rhodes or nothing like that. He wasn't even a thought at the time. He wasn't even there. But
Yeah.
it's crazy to think they were like, let's put Big Show in this match. Let's just do it. He's the closest thing we have to a sumo wrestler. And it took about a decade for the match to start, I felt like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we won't spend too long on this one. Dave Meltzer gave this a dud. I am as well.
Yeah, I agree. 100% agree.
Absolutely. Well, I had to jump in from match 5 to match 6, and we were going to go back now to Piper's Pit. But just because that's one of my favorites, this is one of my least favorites. I thought for continuity that would actually work quite well. But to go then, that we had Piper's Pit actually following the show. And obviously, how ironic as well, because Steve Austin is the guest on Piper's Pit here. Obviously, Steve Austin's going to be on the KO show this weekend at WrestleMania. How fun sometimes things can work quite well in the timeline. Obviously, Piper said, you know, who's the baddest man? Steve Austin, hell yeah, and all that stuff. But then obviously you get like, who's the biggest rebel? And then obviously people are like, with Steve Austin, it's like ball S word. You know, he's not buying that whatsoever. He said he wants to meet Steve Austin. And Steve Austin comes out to the ring, both slap each other as well. And Piper's kind of liking it. Nice to meet you kind of thing. What did you think of the interaction between these two?
Looking back on it now, I love it. Like when I first seen it years ago when I was younger, I didn't obviously really understand it. I was just like, God, like I knew Steve Austin. I didn't really know Roddy Piper at the time when I was growing up. But watching it back now, it's kind of like when people like fantasy book and they're like, oh, I'd love to see if this match had a lined up with this guy and that would have been perfect. Like the way people say about Sting and Taker. Like Roddy Piper and Austin, that would have been crazy good promos as well leading up to a match.
It would have been, really would have been. I really love the line of Piper, by the way. He said, like, you know, Austin's been giving McMahon chaos and stuff like that through his time. But he said Piper's been doing that since WrestleMania didn't have a number. You know, back in the days, WrestleMania 1, for example. And it's like, you know, the only time that, you know, back then that Austin would have been a redneck was actually when he had nappy rash. I thought myself, that was just a great line.
Yeah, that's amazing. Roddy Piper he's just a quick wit, isn't he? He just, the stuff he comes out with. And it feels so off the cuff as well. It's like, if you look back at any of his old bits and pieces, the lines he comes out with, like that one where he says, you don't throw rocks with a man holding a machine gun. It's like, how do you think of that? How do you honestly think of this? It's amazing. The man's just a genius on the microphone, I think.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the best on the stick of all time. And Austin as well, of course, you know, going on there. And of course, the crowd having their involvement with the what chants and stuff like that. And Piper, like I say, going through like, can you not hear me? And then it's like, can you not hear him either? Just very quick off the cuff.
It is, yeah. He's just so sharp, like, and I think as well, like Steve Austin, he's no slouch either. Do you know what I mean? So the back and forth between them and how they interact with the crowd with that, like as you said, oh, you can't hear him, you can't hear him, can't hear me either. That's so smart, and it kind of shuts down the watch hand a bit. You know what I mean? And because the watch hand can get old quick, and like Piper was well able for it.
Absolutely. For me personally, I mean, the what chant is still to this day one of my least favorite chants. As much as it felt kind of fun with Austin doing it in 01, I kind of wish he'd never come up with it because it seems to ruin every good promo in the last 20 years, doesn't it?
It really does. Yeah, it just takes you completely out of it. Like when someone's trying to go out there, and especially heels, like the second a heel comes on the mic, they're getting the watch hand thrown at them, and it ruins it because heel promo work is some of the best that you'll ever hear. Do you know what I mean? And you need that to get over a lot of the time. And if you're having just people chant it over it, like it ruins it a lot, I think.
Absolutely. I want to give a quick shout out to Brock Lesnar, actually, because this week on Raw, he had to go through it. Not a heel at this point, but obviously had to deal with it. But he actually dealt with it quite well with making even references to Steve Austin on the microphone at the time.
Yeah, dead on. Yeah, he smashed it. Lesnar's been smashing it lately, big time. And he again, like he's never been like the most natural on the mic. But I think when you give someone a mic and just go out there, just do whatever you want. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely. As long as you sell that match, you're fine. And I think he was well able as well this week on Raw or whatever. Or was it SmackDown or was it Raw? I can't remember.
I think it was Raw. Yeah, Raw. He did it
Raw,
on opening up the show this week. But yeah, they did a great job with it. But obviously, this does lead to an interruption, as it always does at WrestleMania. And Carlito is the one that's been graced with this spot. He's coming out with his apple, and he's saying that he's the one that's cool of the three of them. He gets in the ring. Piper steals his apple. And then Piper bites a load of the apple off, does a bit of gimmick infringement, spits the apple in Carlito's face. Carlito then attacks Piper. Austin kind of looks for a bit of humor, go like, should I not? I'll get involved. And we see the beat down. Then both of them sort of beat up on Carlito till he eventually falls victim to a stunner. And then, of course, we see then the quickest happy hour in history, the amount of beers that went through Piper and Austin in a quick spell of time before eventually, of course, I mean, Piper couldn't keep up, bless him, at the time. And I'm sure he would definitely have been someone who was in a party or two in his heyday. But of course, eventually, yeah, Austin hits the stunner on Piper as well. This was just a feel-good, fun segment all round.
Yeah, it really was, and fair play to Carlito. He played the part perfectly, and monster spot to be in as well between two legends like that. So that definitely, I'd say, helped his confidence and thinking to himself, like, you know what, they're trusting me to go out here now, and like happy days to him. And as you said, they flew through them beers as well. That was, I can't believe it. Like, I'm surprised they weren't doing the chicken dance walking back to stage. And do you know what I mean? They were a bit wobbly, I'd say.
Even if you're saying that, it must have been. That's all I can say. You know. So yeah, absolutely. But we'll move on in the meantime anyway. And obviously we go on to then the WWE Championship match next then on the show. And of course, for a long time, JBL was the champion. Of course, and now he's taken on John Cena. Of course, John Cena seemed to have been groomed for this for quite a while at this time. But John Cena was the United States champion. He'd lost that belt. We got the image of him losing the belt to Orlando Jordan, with JBL costing him the match. JBL kind of had a real upset with the fact that the United States Championship had been turned into the spinner belt. What were your thoughts of the spinner belt back in the day?
When I first seen it, I really despised it because I loved the old school undisputed title look. But after a while, I just came to it just felt like it was the changing of the time. It's like nowadays everything just has the big WWE logo on it. Yeah. And although I don't really like it, it feels like it has to happen, which is it probably sounds a bit weird, but just feels like change of the times. So
yeah, I suppose. I think you make a good point. It's of the time set, isn't it? I mean, I'm a traditionalist as well. Like with the United States title, with the WWE Championship, for me, like they were a bit too blingy for my liking. Yeah. But I mean, they were a sign of the times, the period that we were growing up through and going in at that time period. So I suppose it did kind of make a lot of sense in a way. But obviously, on the video package we got there, John Cena obviously was upset that he'd lost the US title, but we knew he'd won a number one contenders. I think it was tournament to get to this spot. So he was going to face JBL at WrestleMania, but he wanted to confront JBL, but Teddy Long said that he wasn't coming out at the time. Cena said, if you're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem. So he gave him I believe an FU at that time was instead of attitude adjustment, I think was the term for it at that point. So don't demonetize me, please. But at the same time, not that this is monetized anyway. Who am I kidding? But but of course, then JBL at this point then knows that Cena can't touch him on the build here. But we later learned that if JBL hits Cena first, then Cena can do what he wants. So Cena does what he can to sort of antagonize JBL at this point. Obviously sees a wrecking of the limousine, the drink in the hat that's put on top of his head, the yellow streak down his back, and of course again the letters FU spray painted on the front of JBL's shirt as well. I thought that was all pretty entertaining stuff.
It was, yeah. I think the build to this match ended up being better than the match. I think they built Cena brilliantly. I think like 04, 05 Cena, I loved it. I loved Cena every week, seeing him what he did, and as you said, the build to this match, like with JBL, I hated JBL. Do you know what I mean? Like I love him as like a heel champion. He makes sense, but like if you look at him and you're like JBL or John Cena, JBL or Eddie Guerrero, you'll go with the opposite nearly 9 times out of 10. Yeah. So I think, and especially like the way he was like, I'm the wrestling god, I have a cabinet with me, and he was just so easy to hate. You know what I mean? And I think Cena then playing up to it, as you said, like the yellow streak, the FU on the back stuff on the thing. Yeah, it's just I was just amazing. Like it actually was. It was just so good, and I love them kind of builds where you're like, eventually he's gonna snap. Eventually he's gonna snap, and Cena's gonna be all over him like a rash. Do you know what I mean? And it built to the match perfectly, I think.
It really, really did. It really, really did. And obviously, we get to the entrances, and JBL is got his own special entrance for this WrestleMania. Of course, it was raining money, $100 bills on JBL's face. I'd like one of them or two of them, would you?
Oh yeah, 100%. I would.
That's a souvenir.
Out of sky. Yeah,
absolutely. Souvenir and a half. That would have been absolutely. But you said yourself there a second ago that you thought the build was perhaps better than the match. Now, I don't really have many notes for this match because I feel that, and understandably in a way, this was a championship match. First time both of them had been in a world title match at WrestleMania. I thought that they kind of played this match a bit safe.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. It was very safe, very stock. like you had your standard kind of like heel offense, babyface comeback, stuff like that. It was just very by the book, which is fine. It worked fine. It's just with the build, you were thinking maybe you were going to get a stronger match, but as you said, yeah, it's the first time for both of them being like kind of world championship match at WrestleMania. So maybe as well they probably could have been chatting backstage or something, being like, maybe we just played this by ear, just play it safe.
Yeah, there is that thing. And the thing is as well that I noticed as well, like we're used to, especially today's market, we're used to like the heel, then we're used to the comeback, but then we're used to the false finishes. False finish, false finish, false finish. Oh, backwards and forwards, don't know where it's going to go. This was more, like you said, the traditional route. It was almost like a Hogan WrestleMania match back from the early days where it was like heel, then you had the babyface comeback, and then obviously big move is missed. Obviously, the finish of this match, JBL goes for the clothesline from hell, misses it, goes straight into the attitude adjustment, or at this point, the FU. Can do it one more time, and then picks up the 1, 2, 3. So I mean, it's by the book, it's safe, but there's nothing wrong with this match either. It's just perhaps not one of those that would stand out on this show, even though that you'd say that it is definitely a milestone moment for John Cena's career and JBL's.
100%. Like as you said at the start of the video, it's very changing of the guard this WrestleMania. So with the likes of Cena winning the title and stuff like that, like it was a landmark moment because you're like, right, he's going off now to greener pastures, bigger and better things now. Main event scene, day in, day out. So it did make sense in a way, but yeah, safe standard match. Did what I needed to do, and I think it just kind of puts like, I suppose, like a neon sign over Cena, the main eventer. Do you know what I mean? And then he went on to have way better matches, way better feuds with the likes of say Edge. That's a standout. Do you know what I mean? Stuff like that. Yeah. So I think it did what I had to do. Yeah, it could have been better. But I think they really did want to play it safe, and especially it could have been maybe time as well because they wanted to give the other match then Triple H and Batista maybe a bit more time.
There is that potential. It was one of my next questions I was going to ask because this only went 12 minutes and I believe 13 seconds. So do you reckon timing issue could have been a thing here at WrestleMania?
I think so. Yeah, like the likes of like Michaels and Angle. I don't think you can tell Shawn Michaels to keep it under a certain time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like he's out there and he's the type of guy that he'd remind me, he'd probably turn around and say like, well, that's art. You don't rush that. That's what it feels like to me. So I think if he goes over, or say Taker as well, that's happened a few times on WrestleManias, it can bleed in. And I think, yeah, if any match was going to have to get cut, I'd say, well, not cut, but lose some time, it would have been the likes of the Cena and JBL, because regardless, you're going to get a good reaction of Cena beats JBL in any form or fashion.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is as well, like, they could have cut time on not mucking about before the sumo match. They must have wasted 2 or 3 minutes there. That could have been added to the Cena match itself, couldn't it? So, but hey, it is what it is. And Dave Mutz, I think, is give this if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to make sure I get it. I've got it on my notes here. Don't want to get it wrong. 1.25 star, not 1.5, 1.25. Do you think that's a bit harsh?
I think so. Yeah, especially for like, as you're saying, it's the first time in a World Championship match at WrestleMania. I'd say easily you could maybe go 2.5. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think 2 to 2.5 because, like you said, they've not done a bad job with this. They've just done a safe job, and I think, perhaps I want a bit more thrills. It's WrestleMania. Perhaps you go all out. Maybe that's what's been taken into consideration with that. But I think 2 to 2.5. I think is a fair reflective of what this match would have been, perhaps.
Yeah, it's just as you said, they worked safe, they worked smart. They didn't do like a lot of false finishes, and that's fine. But in the grand scheme of things, I think 2.5 just makes sense for a safe standard match.
Absolutely, indeed. No, totally agree with that one there. Well, we have the Hall of Fame as our next line up there, and obviously we'll just give you some of the names that were put into the Hall of Fame. I think this has to be one of the most stacked Hall of Fame lineups of all time here. Hulk Hogan, of course, is your main person. Then you've got Roddy Piper in there, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, which of course was part of the first ever WrestleMania main events there, of course with Hogan, as well as that we've got the likes of Nikolai Volkov, Iron Sheik, Jimmy Hart, and of course Cowboy Bob Orton. What do you think of that lineup?
That's a brilliant lineup, isn't it? It's just so many golden era guys as well, and I think the Hall of Fame. I remember seeing like 2004, like WrestleMania 20. That was like the first time the Hall of Fame stood out. I think I'm not sure if they ever did a ceremony before that. I know years ago they did. But I don't think it was a yearly thing for a while. But yeah, that 2005 one, it felt like they lived up to the Hollywood thing as well. they were like, right, let's go big with the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely, yeah. No, totally agree indeed there. Well, we're going to go on to the last match then of the show then. And we've got Triple H going against Batista. Of course, Triple H with Ric Flair, the World Heavyweight Championship. What were your thoughts of this build? Obviously, the breakup of Evolution.
Oh, I loved it. Loved this whole build. I love the fact that if you even step back further, you had obviously Randy Orton splintering off first, then Batista, and they were very much like, oh, he'll never leave us, Batista, we made him. And when he had that contract in his hand, it's literally an image that I think will last a lifetime. When he does the thumbs up, the thumbs down. I loved the whole build.
Absolutely, yeah. No, for me as well, I think it was incredible. Obviously, Batista win that Royal Rumble. That moment there with the facials of Triple H and Ric Flair as well, where they're kind of like, yes, he's going.
Yeah.
Oh no, he's staying on Raw. He's going to go against us. They knew what they were going against with the animal, and of course, with the idea of with Randy Orton already been kicked out of this group as well. Randy, of course, had won the World Heavyweight title. You've seen how he was treated on the build to this, also how it was done as well with the Elimination Chamber match done at New Year's Revolution, also with the idea of. Randy, eliminating Batista, and Triple H could have made the save and chose not to. So everything folded in perfectly into place here.
It really did, yeah. And I think as well, with the likes of, say, that, as you were saying, the facials when they were doing the thumbs up, thumbs down moment, I think that alone sold how big of a star Batista could be. Because if Triple H, the current top guy, and Ric Flair, one of the all-time greats, are nervous of getting in the ring with this man, that kind of says, right, he's the next big thing, kind of. No disrespect to Brock's nickname there, but I think that's 100%. That's they sold that there. And then, as you said, when they Batista, Triple H could have made the save on Batista at the New Year's Revolution. That was one of them moments where I was like, oh yeah, this is finished. Evolution's done. And I'm glad they didn't drag it out as well, in terms of it wasn't necessarily a short build by any means, but I mean, I'm glad Triple H and Rick then afterwards didn't turn around and be like, oh, let's continue going with Evolution and get two more guys. I'm glad it was done. It was dead and buried.
Absolutely. And obviously we had the build there for that match, but obviously parts as well of this WrestleMania, of course, with the entrance for Triple H with Motorhead. I thought it was absolutely incredible. I just thoroughly enjoyed that from start to finish.
Oh yeah, I loved it. Oh yeah, I love everything about Triple H, as a person, in terms of say his music taste and the way he carries himself. I love Triple H. Overall, I think he's brilliant. And I think when you have a musical guest involved, or you have a big entrance, I think that it makes it feel 10 times bigger at a match.
Absolutely, yeah. It adds that fire. And we mentioned about commentary notes as well. Obviously, Batista comes out to his music, and they said about the mind games of the experience of Triple H and Ric Flair. Ric Flair being heavily mentioned on ringside, the dirtiest playing the game, 16-time world champion. But also saying the mindset of Batista getting into that match, knowing that Triple H has been playing mind games with Motorhead, playing him down to the ring. I love that touch. I thought it was really, really good. Well played and put together.
Oh, it was, yeah, because it's one of them things that you kind of overlook almost. You're like, oh yeah, WrestleMania, big entrance, but then you think to yourself, wow, this man does have everything kind of in his corner. He has the big entrance. He has his favorite band. He has Ric Flair, the dirtiest player in the game, then sitting at ringside. So it's he's not just focused on Triple H anymore. He's focused on the bigger picture now. He's got a lot of different moving parts here. So yeah, it was brilliant.
Absolutely, yeah. That was absolutely phenomenal. And obviously, playing into this match as well, I thought that this was a good story in that match. That teacher versus student environment, the idea that Ric Flair gets involved multiple times at ringside as well when the referee's back is turned. Did you enjoy this sort of way that this story played out?
I did, yeah. I liked the little, as you said, Ric Flair getting involved, stuff like that. It was very much right, Batista's not going to have an easy run of this, and they know. That they probably, the way, as I said, the way they kind of built him, it was he can easily run through Triple H. It's almost, that's the way they're building it. So he needs every bit of advantage he can get, Triple H here. So I think, yeah, it really did put into perspective, all right, Batista's not going to have an easy run of this. He has to keep his eyes on Ric Flair. He's also up against one of the greatest world champions, I suppose you could say, in Triple H. So by no means is he going to have, I'm going to walk in, hit Batista bomb and walk out. It's not going to be that easy.
Yeah, especially, and Triple H at that time was someone that would put away a lot of performers. All the up and coming rising stars, Triple H was the constant that remained there as the heel, the world champion, and all the time Evolution was there, Triple H was the guy.
He was, yeah, he was that roadblock for so many people. And sometimes, when you look back on it, you kind of think to yourself, oh, I would have liked to see him maybe maybe falter a few times, do you know what I mean? Maybe pass the belt or like have an iffy moment, but he never did. And I suppose, yeah, that's just how he was booked. And whether you like it or not, he was that roadblock.
He was indeed there. And obviously, as you know, Triple H takes a lot of control of this match, but obviously Batista finds his way back in. But a slingshot to Triple H into the ring post splits him wide open. I thought that this was a really nice touch that was added to this match because Triple H bleeding at this point, it just shows that, even, he's that warrior that he'll fight on. And, that experience once again, perhaps someone that was non-experienced would crumble. But Triple H can take this pain, take this punishment, and can still carry on to go another level.
That's it, yeah, and it adds that little bit more to the psychology of the match as well. Like to Batista, what's he feel now he has to do to get this man to a misstep? Do you know what I mean? He's at the splitting him open like a melon, and he's still coming at you. Do you know what I mean? So I'd say the whole thing that they kind of could have with Batista there is like, Jesus, he can't seem to put him away. He can't seem to get a bit of respite here. And I think as well, Triple H was bleeding bad as well.
He was. He really was.
A lot of blood he was losing.
He certainly was. And it came to a point as well where Ric Flair was sort of getting himself involved. Batista was then distracted going on with Ric Flair. Probably one of my favourite parts of the match just because of the theatrics of it. Triple H getting him in a steel chair. The referee diving to stop that chair being used. It's like, we're not ending this on a DQ. That ref dive was amazing.
It was, yeah. It was literally like a shot stopping in a World Cup. That's what it was like.
It really was.
Yeah, he's after getting paid big for this one. That's what it was like.
It felt like it, didn't it? Yeah. It's, if you do a pinfall submission, you get a better payday on WrestleMania by the seams of it. But obviously, this took the referee out just for moments. But of course, Batista hitting the spine buster in the ring on Ric Flair, taking him out of the match at that point. And of course, then we see Triple H using the low blow on Batista when Batista was going to go for the Batista bomb. Triple H then actually goes for a pedigree himself, but Batista actually counters it, turns it into a white noise, which of course, before the white noise days. So, of course, it is a modified slam, as JR would say. And then, of course, Batista picking up the victory after finally hitting his Batista bomb. Batista is your new world heavyweight champion. For me, I really enjoyed the story and the psychology and everything that went in this match. It was quite a lengthy one, but it was a fun one.
It was, yeah. It wasn't by any means like a pure fast-paced kind of, right, let's get to the finish line. It was more of a marathon than a sprint, as they say. And I think it worked well because you wanted to see more of Batista in a singles kind of main event spot here. Do you know what I mean? And it wouldn't have felt right if it was forced or if it was pushed a bit too quick, I think. So I think the pacing of the match actually worked. And Triple H is known to have kind of longer, kind of drawn out matches. Do you know what I mean? Like a rest hold here and there and stuff like that. But it worked so well. And I think Batista, as you said, like reversing the pedigree into like that white noise and then even Triple H not kicking out a Batista bomb. It was one of them things you're like, wow, he is the next top dog. He just put away Triple H like that. And yeah, it was a slog. It was a hard fought match, but it worked so well. And it was a great kind of WrestleMania moment, which led obviously to more Batista Triple H down the line. Like,
absolutely, yeah, and they went to continue to have many more matches, didn't they, in their feud? And no, it was great stuff between these two, and I thought this was a very clever way to end off the show and end off your WrestleMania. But to go then, just on the quick note, Senna, the length of the match, this was 21 minutes and 34 seconds, and just say the referee that made that dive, Mike Chioda, shout out to Mike Chioda for making that superb dive there, honestly. But Dave Mercer gives this a 2 3/4 star rating. I think that this deserves probably for the psychology and, like you say, the pacing, the power, and the way that Triple H does these matches. For me, this has got to be at least a 3.25 for me.
Yeah, I think so. I'd agree with that. 3.25. Even I'd probably push it to a 3.5 just because I love both the lads that are in it. You know what I mean? And I think as well, it was. Like, if you look back on it, I think Batista, I know he gets a bit of a, what would you say, a bit of a hard run of things. Sometimes people say, like, he was, like the way Cena is, I suppose, the guy, he was pushed down the throats. He had a few moves here and there. He wasn't particularly great in the ring, but not everyone needs to be a technician. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Not everyone needs to be a Bret Hart. They don't. And I think with Batista, I think he was actually, he was probably, I suppose the way Cena would be as well. They were almost like parallels. They were both kind of strong guys, very strong guys, and they were over with the fans. Do you know what I mean? They could elicit a reaction fairly easy. So I think they were more like showmen in a way, and I think it was a perfect way to put Batista on top.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, completely agree with that. And I mean, the thing is, it was a star-making moment. This made Batista the main eventer for the remainder of his career. So they were doing something right with what they did here. And I think Batista, he looks like a star. He is what he is, and he's gone on to become a star even after wrestling with, with his movie career as well, and being a part of, Guardians of the Galaxy and other movie franchises as well. So he's done a great job for him. And this was a star-making moment, a career-defining moment, and for me, it was a great way to finish off the show.
Yeah, it really was. As you said, star making moment. He was a made man from this point forward, and and that's what you want. That's what WrestleMania is all about: making a star, making a moment, and they did both of it there and then in that one match.
Absolutely. So to give you a rating then out of 10 for this entire show, what would you give it?
I actually I really did enjoy it. I thoroughly enjoyed it on rewatch. So I think I'd probably give it an 8.
I actually am going to go the same. I think an 8 out of 10. For importance of a WrestleMania, I think this is one of the most important WrestleManias of all time. I think if you put it down to importance alongside of it, you could even bump this up to a 9, because the amount of star-making performances on this show, everyone that was established put someone else over, even if that person was in defeat. We mentioned there, like Randy Orton went in defeat but still got over. Kurt Angle was a top dog anyway and main event of WrestleMania, but still, you would perhaps have picked Shawn Michaels going into that show to pick up the W. So they put him over big time. John Cena and JBL obviously having that championship, caliber match they had, and John Cena winning and getting his first of what would be 16 world titles. Batista getting that moment as well. Edge with Money in the Bank. So, I mean, there's just so many big moments here where stars were put over. Like you said, it was a real change of the guard, passing of the torch, and a WrestleMania built for the future.
It really was, yeah. And as you said, that's the biggest thing in wrestling. Like looking forward to the future, right? Who can we build? And some people get a slower build, some people get like a slower rise, and that's totally fine. But this WrestleMania, it felt like it ticked all the boxes. All the guys that were going to be the next big guys, they were all shot into superstardom that night, I feel.
Absolutely, and I hope we can see some elements like that coming actually for this Saturday and Sunday for the weekend for WrestleMania 38, because there definitely is some stars in the making on those shows. So let's hope they get some, big groundbreaking moments. That'd be really, really nice to see. But that's pretty much everything for us here. Before we close off, just get a couple of the comments that have come in for us, and going to start with Scott Retro Wrestling, who is back on YouTube. Great to have you back on YouTube, Scott. It says the best WrestleMania in his opinion. It's definitely one of those up there. We said we think it's one of the most underrated of all time.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, a lot of people overlook it, I think.
And they do, and they should go back and watch it if they haven't already. And Review Geek 3000 says, great to the show, collaborating with the wrestling community here on YouTube. Awesome content you're throwing out. Keep up the grind. Thank you very much for the kind words there, Review Geek 3000. Need to get you involved on a video one day as well. That would be quite nice to do. Before we leave today, Warren, tell us about Discus Lariat Collective for those that are unaware of it, and just give the channel a plug. What's coming up?
Yeah, so myself, one of the lads called Daryl and one of the lads called Glenn, we're like a wrestling podcast. We just chat about, I suppose like the current ongoings in wrestling, AEW, WWE, stuff like that, and the kind of retro stuff as well on occasion. The next kind of things that we have coming up, we just finished recording actually yesterday. Top 5 WrestleMania heartfelt kind of feel good moments.
Nice.
So that should be up actually today, I think. We did record a Remembered Razor Ramon video. We're going to leave that till after WrestleMania, I think, just maybe the week after, just because don't want to put a little dampener on stuff, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. But so they're the next two kind of big things coming up. And then we're still working through a set of videos on what is the best year for each particular championship, like world title, WWE title, stuff like that. So they'll all be coming soon.
Really exciting, and always great insights on everything that you do. I really enjoy listening to your content, so I really can't wait for all these videos and podcasts to come out in the future. Should be really, really exciting stuff indeed there. And obviously, this channel has been just plugging out lots of content on the road to WrestleMania. So if you get a chance, check some of them out. Even WrestleMania SmackDown predictions for tonight going out. Who's going to win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal? If you're interested, check it out. Why not? I have a small rant as well on the IC and US titles not being on WrestleMania on that video also. And of course, WrestleMania predictions are available on the channel for you right now, as well as a host of other videos. Warren is involved in 2 of them as well. Big collaborations. What is the greatest WrestleMania of all time? And what is the greatest WrestleMania match of all time? Highly recommend to go and check those out if you get the opportunity. But that's all from us anyway. Thank you for watching as always. Take care. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you very soon here on SCW. Take care. Have yourselves a great day. And this has been SCW Rewind.